Welcome to the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We are located on the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. Today is Monday, May 21st, and your radio host is Wanda. I will be reading from the Sunday Fayetteville Obsever. All right. Our first article is a local and state article. Group honors fallen, celebrates families. As the 3rd Special Forces Group paid tribute to its fallen soldiers on Saturday, the tight-knit unit added another member to its ranks. Colonel Major Musa Salou Barman, head of the Niger's Special Operations, is now a permanent member of the tribe, said Colonel Bradley D. Moses, commander of the 3rd Special Forces Group. On October 4, 2017, a group of 3rd Group soldiers and their Nigerian counterparts were ambushed near Tongo in Niger. Four 3rd Special Forces Group soldiers and 5 Nigerian troops were killed in the attack. Before the ambush, officials said the 3rd Group enjoyed a good working relationship with Barmu, but the two sides have grown even closer following the death, with Barmu spending the past few days at Fort Bragg and participating in Saturday's annual Memorial 5K with hundreds of 3rd Special Forces Group soldiers and their families. The Memorial 5K is traditionally the opening act in a week filled with ceremonies and informal gatherings ahead of Memorial Day, Moses said. This is the best part of the week, he said, because it's about smiles and families. Far from a somber affair, officials said the annual event is meant to be a celebration. Families are encouraged to laugh and smile. Leaders take turns in a dunk tank. Others climbed a rock wall or tumbled down inflatable slides. Chief Warrant Officer 5, William Sabat, said the group's command chief warrant officer said he believes that's what the fallen would have wanted from their fellow soldiers. They wouldn't want us boo-hooing, he said. They'd be glad we were here and together. In the past, 3rd Special Forces Group had lost 8 soldiers, including the 4 in the Niger ambush: Sergeant LaDavid Johnson, Staff Sergeant Dustin Wright, Sergeant First Class Jeremiah Johnson, and Staff Sergeant Brian Black. 4 other soldiers died in non-combat incidents. They are Staff Sergeant Logan Melger, Sergeant First Class Jamie Otts, Chief Warrant Officer 3 Jason Thomas, and Sergeant First Class Johnny White. In the coming days, officials will unveil photographs of each of the soldiers in the group headquarters and dedicate stones on the group's memorial walk. Moses said the greatest tribute to those lost was bringing the group together to celebrate the impact they made in the family and friends that remain. That's the key thing about honoring our fallen and maintaining our memory of them, he said. Sobat said many units take care to honor their fallen, but few do so with the level of enthusiasm as the 3rd Special Forces Group. The group's roughly 2,600 soldiers are bonded by shared hardships from near constant deployments over the past 17 years, drawing the soldiers and their families closer together, he said. It's a family-like atmosphere, Sabat added. At the same time, the group has had more than its share of casualties whose images lined the Memorial 5K route. Moses honored Barmu ahead of the run, presenting him with an international award for Special Operations leadership ahead of the annual Special Operations Forces Industry Conference in Tampa this week. This is a big deal, Moses said, breaking with protocol to present the award ahead of the conference. After the run, he took a seat on a dunk tank as the children took aim and sent him falling into the water. Captain Trey Ferguson, one of the organizers of the event, said it was a rare chance to bring the group together. Officials have said that 3rd Special Forces Group soldiers remain in high demand. On any given day, about 400 soldiers from the unit are deployed to between 17 and 22 countries, predominantly in Africa, and those who are not deployed are often training for future missions. Ferguson said the Memorial 5K provides a moment to take a short break from those efforts to honor soldiers lost and thank their families. This has been our way to honor our fallen, he said. They may be gone, but we'll never forget. I'm still pinching myself. Freddie Sherrill was homeless, an alcoholic, and drug addict, and he used to steal his kids' Christmas presents from under the tree and sell them. He was eating out of dumpsters. He could not read or write. Sherrill spent years in and out of prison and rehab centers in North Carolina. He once threw a brick through a store glass window on a freezing night so police would bring him in from the cold. But after a long and painful journey, Sherrill was able to claw his way back to sobriety, and he even learned to read. In one of his biggest accomplishments yet, he graduated from Queen's University of Charlotte with a bachelor's degree earlier this month at the age of 65. Wow. I started a lot of things in my life I didn't finish, Sherrill said. College wasn't going to be one of them. Sherrill's troubles started at a very young age. He had a hard time learning to read when he was a kid growing up in Charlotte in the early 1960s, and he was embarrassed about it. To distract his teacher, he used to put tacks on her chair, or worse, steal money from her purse. By the time he was 8, he was skipping school regularly and stealing from the grocery store to feed himself and his 4 younger siblings. His family home was so dilapidated that when it rained outside, he'd get wet inside. Sherrill was hanging out with teenagers who gave him wine, and he quickly developed a drinking habit, then a drug problem. I used to be a shy kid, but when I took my first drink of alcohol, it made it all go away, he said. It was the first time I felt like I fit in. He started breaking into homes and stealing purses, and as a teen eventually ended up in and out of prison and various treatment centers and halfway houses. This continued through his 20s and late into his 30s. I wasn't stealing so much, stealing from neighbors, stealing from my nephew's clothes to sell. He said, I was stealing so much, stealing from neighbors, stealing from my nephew's clothes to sell, he said. He got married and had a couple of children, but he was an absentee husband and father. One day in 1988, he used his last few dollars to buy a bottle of wine, but his hands were so shaky, he dropped it and it shattered on the ground. I was crying and I was trying to get a drink off the broken glass, he said. He walked over to a nearby train tracks with a pistol in his hand and pointed it at his head. He pulled the trigger. The gun didn't go off. Sherrill took it as a sign. I was tired of hurting everybody around me, he said. That was the beginning. None of the rehab centers in Charlotte would take him back, but a social worker found a halfway house in Morganton, North Carolina, about 60 miles from Charlotte, that accepted him. Starting fresh, he finally stopped drinking and using drugs. He started doing yard work for a woman who brought him along to First Presbyterian Church of Morganton. The pastor hired Sherrill to work on the grounds and other jobs. He said the pastor was the first man who ever trusted him. Sherrill cared about honoring that trust, and he even started to care about himself. He went to a literacy center and started learning the basics. I spent a lot of time taking chances doing negative things, he said. It was time for me to start taking chances doing positive things. After a time, he convinced his wife to move to Morganton and bring their 5 children. 2 of his daughters were in 2nd and 4th grade. He couldn't help them with their homework. I could read Cat in the Hat books. I practiced those with my daughters, he said. They could read better than I could. Little by little, he learned to read and write. He took the high school equivalency exam 5 times and failed. On the 6th, he passed with 1 point to spare. When I stopped drinking and using drugs and alcohol, my whole life was different. He said, it was like from going blind to learning to see. I wanted to be a father. I wanted to be a part of the world. He had never had a bank account, so his friends at church helped him open one. Today, kids learn that So today kids learn that in the 1st and 2nd grade, he said. I had to get rid of the shame and admit I didn't know how to do things. And he wanted a better life for his children. I was determined my children would not grow up like I did, he said. He moved back to Charlotte for a job as an events setup coordinator for Myers Park Presbyterian Church. He started taking college classes. It took him 8 years to earn his associate degree. Around that time, his son was close to graduating from high school. Cheryl went by Queen's University to figure out how to help his son apply for entry and also for financial aid. The staff explained the process and told him he should apply himself. He declined, saying he was too old, but he helped his son successfully apply to North Carolina A&T in Greensboro. Then he had an idea. He wanted to be sure his son stayed in college, so he came up with a challenge. He'd enroll and have a little friendly competition with his son. Whoever got the best GPA at the end of each semester would give the other one $100. I was challenging my son so he wouldn't drop out, Cheryl said. In the process, he found he was enjoying taking college classes and also feeling great about himself. His son graduated in 4.5 years and is now a financial advisor with Merrill Lynch. It took Cheryl 8 years, but he graduated on May 5th with a degree in Human Service Studies. He'd like to get a job working with underprivileged kids. I'm having a different feeling about myself now, my self-esteem. He's been sober for 29 years. He marvels at both of those things. And he has a college degree. It's unreal. I'm still pinching myself that this is something I actually accomplished. It's hard to believe it. What a success story. And with this story is a picture of Freddie Sherrill holding his diploma. He's got one hand on that diploma with a tight grip and the other hand looks like he's waving. So congratulations to him for all his hard work. Decision expected Monday on Health Board issue. The Cumberland County Board of Commissioners is expected to decide Monday whether to take over the duties of the Board of Health. Commissioners set Monday's meeting as a deadline to make a decision on the issue, which is part of a discussion commissioners are having over the possibility of changing how the county's human services agencies are organized. Commissioners have 4 options: assume oversight for one or both of the health and social services departments while keeping them separate, consolidate the 2 departments and appoint a board to oversee the merged department, combine the 2 departments and with 1 commissioner assuming the role of the oversight board, take no action, leaving the boards and departments as they are aligned. The Board of Health wants commissioners to take the 4th option. In an undated letter released earlier this month by county officials, the Health Board said it reviewed its current operations as a governing board during a retreat on April 30th. We, the Cumberland County Board of Health, have taken the position that we want to remain a stand-alone Department of Health, the board told the commissioners in the letter. We also want to remain a governing board for the Cumberland County Department of Public Health. No consensus was apparent when commissioners discussed the issue at their May 7th meeting. Also at the meeting, at Monday's meeting, commissioners are expected to consider a resolution supporting the Pathway to Prosperity Action Plan. The initiative seeks to pull the area's poorest residents out of generational poverty. Commissioners also will give residents an opportunity to speak during a public comment period. A closed session to discuss legal matters also is scheduled. The commissioners' meeting is scheduled for 6:45 in room 118 of the Judge E. Maurice Braswell Courthouse. It's sadness and happiness at one time. Not even rain could conceal the tears. Marine veteran Robert Shelley was peering directly into the rows of U.S. flags in front of him his face twisting slightly with emotion as he spoke of his father and other loved ones who served their country. Could he share what he was feeling at that moment? Tears of joy right now. It's sadness and happiness at one time, Shelby replied, referring to his reaction to the newly assembled Field of Honor. Excuse me. You look out and wonder who isn't there. There could be many more flags. The 11th annual Field of Honor officially opened to the public Saturday morning on the parade ground of the Downtown Airborne and Special Operations Museum. A dedication ceremony was scheduled outside the museum, but rain forced the program into the auditorium. About 800 flags, each one measuring 3 feet by 5 feet, graced the field, with roughly 500 of them tagged with the names of the sponsor and the honoree. The flags pay tribute to veterans both living and deceased, as well as active duty members. You know, I was thinking about this last night, says Shelley, 52, who recently moved to Raleigh but continues to work in his hometown of Fayetteville. It's just special to me remembering the fond memories of what our loved ones meant to us. Shelley has participated in the Field of Honor since its inception in 2005. For this one, he said he's going to buy a flag for his father, Robert Shelley, who was also a Marine, and a couple of more for his uncles, Charlie and Ernest Shelley, who served in the Army. You just can't miss this, he said, before entering the flapping cluster of red, white, and blue flags on the green parade field. About 200 people attended the somber ceremony. The flags will remain on display through the 4th of July. The Fayetteville Field of Honor has its roots in Utah's Field of Flags, started to help remember the fallen heroes after September 11, 2001. Today, there are hundreds of fields across the country, but the Fayetteville Field remains the only one to fly in North Carolina, according to this year's Field of Honor program. Sheriff Johnson, head of the 2018 Field of Honor, called it a living display of heroism. Army Colonel Jason Slider, commander of the 95th Civil Affairs Brigade, served as keynote speaker. He told the audience that the Field of Honor is a reminder to never forget our defenders, including those who served in the past and those who wear uniforms of the armed forces today. We should, and it's right to do so, reflect on the flag, Slider said. Flags are available for $25 per honoree from the museum gift shop by calling 910-643-2778 or 910-643-2773 or online at shop.asomf.org. The ceremony paid special tribute to 5 service members during the presentation of honorees singled out for their commitment to their country. Army Command Sergeant Major Charles Stevens, a native of Wallace in nearby Duplin County, who spent 28 years in the service as an enlisted medical soldier. After earning his parachute wings, he landed at Fort Bragg, where he became a member of the all-black 555 Parachute Infantry Battalion, also known as the Triple Nickels. Stevens retired from the 82nd Airborne as its Chief Medical Non-Commissioned Officer. Army Sergeant Jonathan Michael Hunter of Columbus, Indiana, who enlisted in April 2014 and was assigned to Alpha Company, 2nd Battalion, 504 Parachute Infantry Regiment on Fort Bragg. Hunter was killed in action on August 2, 2017 in Kandahar, Afghanistan. Army Master Sergeant Robert Anspach of Fayetteville was a Green Beret who served 18 years in the military and was planning his retirement before being reported missing in action on September 11, 1967. His airboat was ambushed by Viet Cong during the Vietnam War. Anspach has been classified as killed in action. His body has not been recovered. Army Specialist Christopher Michael Harris of Jackson Springs was assigned to the Fort Bragg 2nd Battalion, 504 Parachute Infantry Regiment, 1st Brigade Combat Team, and the 82nd Airborne Division when his patrol vehicle was struck by a vehicle-borne improvised explosive device on August 2, 2017. That was 2 weeks into his deployment to Afghanistan. Jack Cox, originally of Rushville, Illinois, served a 50-year federal service career, and distinguished himself as a civil service employee. Cox was in attendance. Standing in the rain, 83-year-old Sharon Harris of Fayetteville singled out her husband's honorary flag and a few others for family members. She moved slowly in the wet grass while most people from the ceremony quickly headed to their vehicles. Norman Harris, who died 3 years ago on Memorial Day at the age of 80, was an Army Vietnam veteran. Her son-in-law and her daughter's father and uncle also have flags on the grounds of the museum. Norman said she, with her eyes moistened with tears, loved his time in the Army. "I like to honor him," she said, "and show my respect for him." It was then, after her visit to the Field of Honor, that Mrs. Harris started for her car in the parking lot. Hashtag Still Cameron Middle Schooler leads efforts to help fellow students. Aiden Moore, a 6th grader at Mac Williams Middle School, wanted to help one of his schoolmates, Cameron Hales, also a 6th grader. Cameron has been diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma, a rare kind of bone cancer, and she and her family have been going back and forth to Duke Medical Center for treatment. Aiden says his mother, Jennifer Moore, challenged him to raise $100 to help with the family's travel and other expenses. It just kept going after that, says Aiden, who is 12. He talked about the fundraising effort on Friday. Aiden is a black belt who trains at Team Tiger Karate Club in Hope Mills. His sensei, Charles Cook, gave him the floor before they bowed and started class. Aiden talked to his fellow students and their parents. He set up a jar in the studio with the message, "Help Cameron Hales kick cancer's butt." Before long, he had raised $400. Then he decided to try to aim for $1,000 and was able to reach that goal earlier this month. Along the way, he was a witness to how community comes together to help one of his daughters. Aiden and 2 friends, Andrew and Michael, went along with his father, David Moore, to talk to their neighbors in River Glen off River Road. They went on a weeknight and back out again on Saturday. "We did the entire neighborhood," says Aiden. He said at one home someone sent along prayers to Cameron. Aiden would later speak to his classmates too, and 2 of them donated. His efforts were inspired by a drive conducted by the school's Beta Club to purchase gift cards for the Haleses. Cameron is still at Duke undergoing treatment. She should be coming home by the end of the year, says her mother, Cassidy Hales. Cassidy Hales said they feel really blessed and overwhelmed in a good way by the support. "It has been a great thing," she said. "Everybody showed love and support, even people that we don't really know. Cameron does not like to be the center of attention, so that part has been challenging," says her mother. But she describes her daughter as outgoing and very hardworking. It's a sentiment echoed by Tina Cashwell, a 6th grade social studies teacher who is the Beta Club's representative for that grade. Cameron is active in the club. The 6th grader is quiet and well organized. Her interactive books are carefully color-coded, says Cashwell. She's a very hard worker, very organized, everything to a T, says Cashwell. She says people who might want to bring Cameron snacks and goodies to the hospital are told to instead bring her things to help her stay organized. She describes Cameron as very smart and a good learner who does peer tutoring. Strong-willed too, she says. Cameron is a major fan of softball. She was in the process of trying out for the Mustangs team when she began to have pains she thought were sports related. After her diagnosis, she returned to school. She reminded her classmates, "I'm still Cameron." The statement inspired a hashtag. Beta Club members sold wristbands with the words in Cameron's favorite color, lime green, to raise money. In the softball team opener last month, the girls wore lime green bows. The boys' baseball team wore the wristbands, as did the umpire and some of the members of the opposing team. Aiden does not know Cameron well, but has been inspired by the outpouring he has seen on her behalf. It means a lot. And in this, with this article, there is a picture of Aiden, little fella, dark hair, looks with a big smile, and there he's holding a poster along with the teacher, with the Miss Cashwell, and this poster was made by his classmates at the karate club, and it says, "Support Cameron's fight against cancer." So this little man has a big heart. All right. Just nice to see, heartwarming amongst all the bad news, those very good articles. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. Your radio host is Wanda, and I am proud to serve you today. Smart, disciplined, eager to achieve. Ask Grace Gore her favorite Hollywood actor, and she names silent film great Buster Keaton. When it comes to music, she admits listening to a lot of Sinatra. The 20-year-old college student, too, admires the classic writing of English novelist Charles Dickens. More and more, she says, time has left me behind. Not quite. Yes, Gore may dress like a contemporary poet of Emily Dickinson in handsome Victorian era-like attire, meeting for an interview in the Tony Rand Student Center on the campus of Fayetteville Technical Community College in matching all-black shirt, skirt, jacket, and shoes. But her beautiful mind tilts fully into the future like a Philip K. Dick sci-fi novel. She hopes to one day leave her mark in the active field of biochemistry research. Gore is the first student at Fayetteville Technical Community College to become a finalist for the Goodnight Scholarship to NC State University in Raleigh. She's also, more importantly, the first FTCC student to receive that honor. I wept unashamedly. I wept before my computer screen, she said, on the first learning that she had been accepted for the potential 3-year scholarship. Things like this mean so much to me, all the honors I've ever had. The Goodnight Scholarship Program prepares the state's top STEM talent to become transformational leaders at NC State in North Carolina and in the world. According to the STEM program's website, STEM is an acronym for the fields of science, technology, engineering, and math. In more recent years, STEM-related programs have been emphasized because too few college students are pursuing degrees in those fields. It is basically a full-ride scholarship, she said, in her way of speaking. In short, economical synthesis, not just a grant, but it's very important to realize it's community service. It is incredibly pervasive and thorough. As a college student, Gore is eager to advance her field of scientific study, perhaps conducting research in the area of genomics. The genome is the set of all genes, and genomics is the study of the inheritance of genes in an organism. I'm going to leave that largely to explore, she said of the particular area that she intends to enter. That's going to develop over the coming years. On Friday, Gore graduated from Fayetteville Tech after 3 years of study. She received the President's List Award. FTCC has been the entirety of my social life, she said. I have loved it. I'm definitely going to miss it. I'm very fond of the faculty and staff here. It has been wonderful. I've worked hard to maintain my 4.0. It's real important to know my instructors are passionate. They can make or break you in a field. She will continue her undergraduate education in the fall at NC State. She hopes to use her third year as of her Goodnight Scholarship for graduate school before going on to obtain her doctorate. Before college, Gore was homeschooled. Her father, Ashley, is a civilian employee on Fort Bragg. Her mother, Ruth, who did most of the homeschooling, is a piano and voice teacher. Before attending Fayetteville Tech, the largest class she had ever been in was 4, including herself. The community college setting proved incredibly different for her, but 3 siblings had taken what she called this traditional route, also attending FTCC. Her parents she said knew it would be a good place for her to start. I felt very engaged, said Gore. At FTCC, she experienced labs in the science courses for the first time. Besides a love of Dickens, Keaton, Sinatra, and science, this unique college co-ed cultivates a creative side. Like her mother, she plays piano and sings. Gore does pencil sketching, pursues photography, and like Emily Dickinson in her day, takes pride and pleasure in baking. Just consider that she grinds her own flour. I make a lot of cakes, she says with a smile. I personally love international baking. Congratulations to that young woman. Bishop Curry gives royal wedding an American flair. I don't know how many of you were able to watch the wedding last weekend. We'll try to fill you in if you were not able with this article. Nothing quite captured the transatlantic nature of Saturday's royal wedding as much as the guest preacher whose sermon brought American flair to a very English church service. The Most Reverend Michael Bruce Curry, the first black leader of the Episcopal Church in the United States, was handpicked by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle to address their 600 wedding guests. The bishop's sermon on the theme of love, delivered with energy and studded with quotes from the Bible. Martin Luther King Jr. and African American spirituals was a contrast to the more solemn Anglican style the royal family is used to. Quoting civil rights icon King on the redemptive power of love, Curry told the bride and groom, "It's not just for and about a young couple who we rejoice with. It's more than that." Many observers were surprised and delighted. BBC broadcaster Jeremy Vine tweeted, "The preacher is doing 50 in a 30 zone and it's brilliant." Supermodel Naomi Campbell hit caps lock and tweeted, "Bishop Michael Curry giving me life." Curry, who like Markle's mother has African ancestors who were slaves in the U.S., said that even during their time of bondage, love helped those in captivity persevere. When love is the way we actually treat each other, well, like we are actual family, he said in a sermon that touched on poverty, inequality, and the healing power of love. When love is the way, we know that God is the source of us all, and we are brothers and sisters, children of God and brothers and sisters. He said, that's a new heaven, a new earth, and a new world, a new human family. Harry and Markle exchanged a quick glance at one point as Curry drifted from his prepared remarks and ad-libbed. Camilla and Kate, the Duchess of Cornwall and the Duchess of Cambridge, traded sidelong glances. Queen Elizabeth II, who as monarch holds the title of Supreme Governor of the Church of England, did not show any signs of discomfort and looked as stoic as she had throughout the entire ceremony. There may have been a touch of royal relief when Curry quipped, "We gotta get y'all married now." But he kept going, bringing a dash of passion to the pulpit. The crowds waiting outside for a glimpse of the royal couple loved it. Cheers greeted Curry as he walked uphill from the chapel along the procession route after the service. One man shouted, "Well done," prompting a smile and "God bless you" from the bishop. Former Labour Party leader Ed Miliband, an atheist, tweeted, "Reverend Michael Curry could almost make me a believer." The Episcopal Church is an offshoot of the Church of England in the United States. And has been the spiritual home of many of the American founding fathers and U.S. presidents. Even though its support for gay marriage has recently caused friction with the greater Anglican community, Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby said ahead of the ceremony that he was thrilled Curry would be speaking there, calling him a stunning preacher. Curry, 65, who is married and has 2 grown daughters, was born in Chicago and raised in Buffalo, New York. He began his ministry in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and served as rector in Lincoln Heights, Ohio, and Baltimore, Maryland. Selecting him to give the sermon was one of several personal touches by Harry and Meghan put on the service held in the 15th century St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. Markle, who attended a Roman Catholic school, was baptized in March into the Church of England in preparation for the wedding and joining the royal family. The ceremony was based on common worship, the most modern of the several churches of England service options, and included prayers and hymns as well as readings and musical selections chosen by the couple and their family. That included a fusion of American and British elements, including the London-based gospel ensemble, the Kingdom's Choir, stirring rendition of Ben E. King's Stand By Me, and Etta James' Amen, This Little Light of Mine. Teenage cellist Shaku Kenny Mason wowed the 600 guests with works including Franz Schubert's Ave Maria. The cellist won the BBC's Young Musician of the Year contest in 2016, the first black musician to do so. For all the individual touches, the service was dominated by tradition. The pair read the Church of England wedding vows, promising to have and to hold, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish till death do us part. Then the Archbishop pronounced them husband and wife, those whom God has joined together, let no one put asunder. Wilkie absolutely honored by VA Secretary nomination. Before Fayetteville native Robert Wilkie can lead the Department of Veteran Affairs, he must step down as VA's acting leader. Wilkie told the Observer on Saturday that he will leave the Department of Veteran Affairs and return to the Pentagon after being nominated to serve as the VA Secretary by President Trump. Federal law does not permit Wilkie to stay on as acting secretary while there is a pending nomination, he explained in an email. Trump surprised many with the timing of his announcement on Friday that Wilkie would be his choice to lead the nation's second largest government agency. Wilkie, who was confirmed late last year as Undersecretary of Personnel and Readiness in the Department of Defense, said he would return to that role while he waits out the nomination process. As Undersecretary, Wilkie has oversight over much of the U.S. military operations, including personnel, training, health care, and compensation. He told the Observer that he was absolutely honored and cannot think of a higher cause to serve in regard to his nomination to become VA Secretary. Wilkie is a veteran himself, having served in the Navy and Air Force Reserve, and the son of an Army artillery officer. He grew up outside of Fort Bragg and still calls Fayetteville home. Wilkie recently visited the city to speak to the Braxton Bragg chapter of the Association of the U.S. Army. He is expected to return to North Carolina next month to speak at the Medical, Biomedical, and Biodefense Support to the Warfighter Symposium in Chapel Hill. Wilkie's nomination has been largely praised by members of Congress and veteran groups. He has served as acting VA Secretary since last March, replacing the previous VA Secretary, David Shulkin. Shulkin was ousted following controversy over travel expenses and ongoing concerns over access to VA care. Trump's original pick as a permanent replacement to Shulkin, former White House Dr. Rear Admiral Ronnie Jackson, removed himself from consideration following allegations of misconduct and mismanagement. Wilkie is a known entity to many in Congress, suggesting that his path to confirmation will be likely much easier. Before joining the Department of Defense last year, Wilkie served as a senior advisor to Senator Tom Tillis, a North Carolina Republican, and held numerous roles during the administration of President George W. Bush. He was Assistant Secretary to Defense for Legislative Affairs during the Bush administration and served as a Senior Director of the National Security Council under Condoleezza Rice. He has also worked as a counsel for the late Senator Jesse Helms and as an advisor and counsel for former Senator Majority Leader Trent Lott. In Fayetteville, Wilkie attended Reed Ross High School and Alexander Graham Junior High. He is married to the former Julia Bullard, whose family owned and operated Haymount Market for 40 years. The couple have 2 children, Adam and Megan. Spiking in Fayetteville. Last spring, Kelly Melvin and her family found their lives taken over by volleyball. Melvin, a coach, and the parents of 2 players on 2 teams with the Sandhills Volleyball Club seemed to be spending every spare moment on a volleyball court. Last year, my daughters played on opposing weekends, Melvin said, so every weekend from the first week of January to the end of April, we were gone to a volleyball tournament. That's to say nothing of the practice schedule. With Melvin's daughters, Taylor and Olivia, landing in 2 age divisions, the family was at practice at least 2 hours a night, 4 nights a week. It's a familiar grind to families involved in travel volleyball. The sport has exploded in participation in recent years. According to the American Volleyball Coaches Association, AAU volleyball, with more than 100,000 players, has more participants than any other AAU girls sports team. The association also reported more than 247,000 of USA volleyball member athletes are junior girls between the ages of 10 and 18. At the high school level, girls volleyball is second on the National Federation of State High School Associations list of girls sports in the number of participants, second to outdoor track and field. Fayetteville, for its part, seems to be keeping in lockstep with the sport's national growth. Despite the growing demand travel volleyball puts on its participants and their parents in terms of time and expense. Sandhills Volleyball Club is the major hub for the city's traveling volleyball scene. Kevin Farley started the organization in 2008 with 2 teams. This season, Sandhills has more than 200 players across 22 teams. Farley got his first taste of travel volleyball more than a decade ago when his daughters took up the sport. Once my kids got into volleyball, we all got into volleyball, Farley said. It's very expensive. We did it for a couple of years and realized how expensive it was. And I won't say out of necessity, but out of financial purposes, I started a club. Sandhills, like many local clubs of its size, offers players of varying skills levels the opportunity to develop, with athletes getting more intensive training and competition than school or recreation provides. The cost reflects the improved product. Families pay between $900 and $1,000 in club dues, which include uniform, court practice time, coaches' pay, and tournament fees, leaving travel expenses to their families. For that cost, teams compete in 6 1- or 2-day regional tournaments within a few hours' drive from Fayetteville from January through the end of March. The better teams continue with national tournaments scheduled in April through June, each of which incurs additional fees, dues, and travel expenses. Monique Kendall said that yes, travel volleyball is expensive and time-consuming, but parents don't enter into it blindly. We asked a lot of those questions before we even came. Kendall said parents asked about the time and the cost, so there weren't any surprises. Like many of Sandhills' families, Kendall signed up her daughter Sydney Kendall Eason for travel after getting a start in rec volleyball. Now 12, Sydney has been playing for Sandhills for 3 years. It was worth it for us because it was something she really wanted to do, Kendall said. She fell in love with it. She would eat, drink, sleep volleyball. Many of the Sandhills families have more than one girl playing in the club. For Stephen and Amber Spexard, parents of 17-year-old Alexis and 14-year-old Hannah, that means twice the time and twice the money put towards the sport. It's exhausting, Amber said. We work full time. Obviously, I get off at 5:30, come straight home, get the girls, and go to the gym. Every weekend we were out of town, said Stephen, who coaches Alexis' team. Both of our girls had 4 different nationals they played in this year, so we traveled to Atlanta, Winter Bump in Myrtle Beach. We're going to Williamsburg, Virginia. It's non-stop. With 2 girls in play, the Spexards put the total cost on the family upward of $5,000 per season, more in seasons when the girls' teams go to different sites. The couple said that while scholarships would be nice, college scholarships would be nice, the family thinks the investment is worthwhile for the joy it brings their daughters to play. For the girls, it's about bonding with other people that you're not in school with, that you don't see every day. Amber said the facial expression of when they win or they get a good block or do something for the first time. That's it. There are, of course, families. Excuse me, I'm going to close my door. Little background noise. There are, of course, families with an eye on getting their daughters recruited by college volleyball programs. In addition to Sandhills, families in the Cape Fear region can sign up with the Sand Volleyball Focus Area Fayetteville Volleyball Association, Eastside Volleyball, AC, Sandhills in Moore County, or a number of smaller clubs in Robeson County. But for elite players, garnering Division I interest likely means a switch to Triangle Volleyball Club, the nearest high-profile club that offers more than a dozen national teams and an opportunity to play in national qualifying tournaments. It's a leap for players to move from a development-focused club like Sandhills to a placement like Triangle Volleyball Club. The Wood family, parents Phil and Maria, and daughters Brianna and Brittany, made that leap 3 years ago. Brianna, now a freshman at East Carolina, played with the FAVVA, and Sandhills, where Brittany, now a high school junior, also started travel volleyball. At some larger tournaments, the Woods were asked about Brianna's college volleyball aspirations, if any, and that's when the family started to consider a move to the Triangle Club. Sandhills is a great club, but they didn't have a team that was going to national, and when you're required to go to national, where you're required to go to national qualifiers, Woods said. That's where you go if you have kids that you want to be recruited and to be seen, because coaches have a tendency to show up at a lot of these tournaments. That's your opportunity. Texas gunman blasted through the door. I tell you, these articles, these stories are coming a little too often, sad to say. The suspect in the Texas school shooting began his attack by firing a shotgun through an art classroom door, shattering a glass pane and sending panicked students to the entryway to block him from getting inside. Demetrius Pagatorres fired again through the wooden part of the door and fatally hit a student in the chest. He then lingered for about 30 minutes in a warren of 4 rooms, killing 7 more students and 2 teachers before exchanging gunfire with police and surrendering. Freshman Abel San Miguel saw his friend Chris Stone killed at the door. San Miguel got grazed in the stomach by another volley of shots. He and others survived by playing dead. We were on the ground, all piled up in random positions, he said. Galveston County Judge Mark Henry, the county's chief administrator, said he did not think Friday's attack was 30 minutes of constant shooting, and that the assessment was consistent with other officials who said law enforcement contained the shooter quickly, but authorities did not release a detailed timeline to explain precisely how events unfolded. Junior Brianna Quintilla was in art class when she heard the shots and someone say, "If you all move, I'm going to shoot you all." The 17-year-old Petscores walked in, pointed at one person and declared, "I'm going to kill you." Then he fired. He then said that if the rest of us moved, he was going to shoot us, Quintella said. When Quintella tried to run out the back door, she realized Pasgoras was aiming at her. He fired in her direction. "He missed me," she said, "but it went ahead and ricocheted and hit me in my right leg." She was treated at a hospital and spoke with a brown bandage wrapped around her wound. "It was a very scary thing," Quintella said. "I was worried that I wasn't going to be able to make it back to my family." In their first statement since the massacre, Pasgora's family said that the bloodshed seems incompatible with the boy we love. "We are as shocked and confused as anyone else by these events," said the statement, which offered prayers and condolences to the victims. Relatives said they remained mostly in the dark about the specifics of the attack and shared the public's hunger for answers. Pasgora's attorney, Nicholas Pohl, said he was investigating whether the suspect endured any teacher-on-student bullying after reading reports of his client being mistreated by his football coaches. In an online statement, the school district said it investigated the accusations and confirmed that these reports were untrue. Pohl said that there was no history of mental health issues with his client, though there may be some indications of family history. He said it was too early to elaborate. Zach Wolford, a senior, said he was in his agricultural shop class when he heard gunfire from the art classroom across the hall. He said his substitute teacher, Chris West, went into the hall to investigate and pull the fire alarm. "He saved many people today," Wolford said of West. The mother of one slain student said her daughter may have been targeted because she rejected advances from Pasgoras, who was an ex-boyfriend of her daughter's best friend. Sadie Rodriguez said her 16-year-old daughter, Shayna Fisher, repeatedly told him no, and he continued to get more aggressive. The week before the shooting, Fisher stood up to him by embarrassing him in class. The Houston branch of the FBI tweeted Saturday that 13 people were wounded in the attack, up from 10 previously. Hospitals reported treating 14 people with shooting-related injuries, and the reason for the discrepancy still was not clear. In addition to a shotgun and a handgun, Pasgoras also had several kinds of homemade explosive devices, but they were not capable of detonating, Henry said. Investigators found a cluster of carbon dioxide canisters taped together and a pressure cooker with an alarm clock and nails inside, but the canister had no detonation device and the pressure cooker had no explosive material, Henry said. They were intended to look like IEDs, but they were totally non-functional. Authorities have offered no motive, but they said in a probable cause affidavit that the suspect had committed to carrying out the shooting. The gunman told police that when he opened fire, he avoided shooting students he liked so he could have his story told, the affidavit said. From first word of the shooting at 7:32 a.m. Friday until confirmation that the suspect wasn't in custody, the attack lasted half an hour. Dispatch records indicate that law enforcement first entered the building about 7 minutes after learning of the assault. The suspect was said to be in custody shortly after 8 a.m. Texas Governor Greg Abbott said the assailant got a handgun and shotgun from his father, who owned them legally, but it was not clear whether the father knew his son had taken them or if the father could face prosecution. State law makes it illegal to give a gun to anyone under 18 except under the supervision of an adult for hunting or sports shooting. Pasgoras, who appeared to have no prior arrest or confrontations with law enforcement, made an initial court appearance Friday on capital murder charges. A judge denied bond and took his application for a court-appointed attorney. The shooting in Santa Fe, a city of 13,000 people, about 30 miles southeast of Houston, was the nation's deadliest such attack since the Parkland massacre that killed 17 people and energized teen-led gun control movement. It was also the deadliest assault in Texas since a man with a semi-automatic rifle attacked a rural church late last year. Meanwhile, students on Saturday were being let back into Santa Fe High School to gather belongings they abandoned when the gunfire began. The school's grief was on display at an evening baseball game where Santa Fe players had crosses painted on their faces and the initials of shooting victims written on tape around their wrists. The team also fashioned a tape a crossover. The team also fashioned a tape crossover over a tape. Excuse me. The team also fashioned a tape cross over the dugout with 10 sets of initials and missed but never forgotten. Our prayers go out to the families. This concludes our reading of the Sunday Fayetteville Observer. Your radio host has been Wanda, and coming up next, a broadcast of the Harnett County News and the Robertsonian and the Rayford News Journal. I've enjoyed being with you this evening. Thank you for tuning me in, and have a wonderful day.